We are Zola Bantu. We live in love, we live in purity, we live in justice. We are priests, we are scientists, we are judges. The three pillars of spirituality. We bring together the best of us, we build together, we don't destroy.
Hi, we are Zola Bantu. We live in love, we live in purity, we live in justice. We are priests and we are scientists and we are judges. The three pillars of spirituality. We bring together the best of us, we build together, we don't destroy. Today, we're basically in Tanga, in Tanzania. And the person next to me is
Simcha.
This is Queen Simcha, and we're basically in her beautiful home. It's such an experience over here in Tanga. But she's also a Zola Bantu community member and one of our queens. And I'm so excited to spend this moment with her, to be able to get to know her a little bit better. And for many of you watching us, to be able to know who exactly is Simcha, right? And you're going to have such an amazing conversation today to really know who the queen is. A little bit about her life also, and now she came from the UK and now she's living here in Tanzania. How has been the experience over here living in Africa, coming from the diaspora? An encouragement for many of you basically who are trying to come back to the continent. Queen Simcha's story will probably be a motivation to many of you. Queen Simcha, how does it feel to finally have what I'm from Zola Bantu with you today?
Oh, it's great. Amazing. It's so nice. I'm so blessed. I feel honored.
Wow. And what can you tell the people about Tanga? Just in brief.
Tanga is a lovely place. Tanga is one of those places where you take things slowly and you take life easier. It's just a breath of fresh air.
Wow.
When I wake up in the morning, I just walk out from my front door and I just breathe this breath and feel, I love Tanga.
We're going to get into details, my friends, of Africa on why Tanga is such a blessing to the Queen. I want to know, Queen, who exactly is Simcha?
Who exactly is Simcha? Okay. Shall I start from saying where I was born?
Exactly.
Would that be helpful?
Absolutely.
So I'm Simcha. I was born in Dominica. Dominica, it's not Dominican Republic like everybody thinks when I say Dominica. It's Dominica in the Caribbean, in the West Indies, in the Windward Islands. It's an island. It's a very tiny island, but it's a beautiful island. And it's a sort of smaller version. I think sometimes when I think about Tanzania, it's a smaller version of Tanzania or Africa or any of the places on the continent. That's where I was born, and I stayed there till I was about 11 and a half. And my mum had gone, my parents had gone into the UK, and I stayed with relatives. You know how it is, how you brought up with the lady, the next door person, the person who lives in the village, called her auntie. She brought me up until my mum was ready to have me. I think I was away from my mum for about 2 years or so before I joined her in the UK. But let me just say, when I was in the Caribbean, there was lots of things that I did that I see people doing here, like the children, carrying the wood, going to fetch water. I did all of those things. I went to the market to sell stuff. I used to sell bread in the morning. So being here, I'll talk a bit more about being here, but it's like a reminder of my childhood, the time that I spent in Dominica. So I went to the UK as an 11-and-a-half-year-old and grew up there, went to school there, got to, get to learn the culture, that accent that I've got now. It's not so much a Dominican accent because I spent quite a few years in the UK and grew up, college, university, all those things. And
Wow, a work life
I'm here
also
now.
in the UK.
My work life, what did I do? My background is social work. So I trained as a social worker. I've worked with families, doing working with families with foster children, working with the courts, children around child abuse, all those sorts of things. And I did some further training in therapeutic childcare. So I'm a play therapist as well. I work with children, helping them around their emotional needs and so on. Yeah, so I did a bit of that over there. So that's my background.
So is Simcha a mother?
Background. Simcha is a mother, yeah.
Wow.
Simcha is a mother to 3 beautiful adults. They're not children now, they're adults.
We have moved from childhood, right?
Yeah, and may I say that I'm a grandma as well? So I have 2 grandchildren at the moment and 1 on the way that I'm excited about. So, yeah,
Wow.
I'm a grandmother as well.
What message can you give to your grandchildren?
What messages can I give to my grandchildren? I want them to have a relationship with the Most High and to recognize that there is a Creator and to look to Him and because He created all of us, so we need to know Him and to be guided by Him and to allow them to guide His life. To respect their parents, and I want to give a message to their parents, my children, to bring up your children in the right way and to know that from a very young age you've got to instill good values in them. And I know that children, they might go off in different directions when they get older, but if you give them a good foundation, they'll have always something as a frame of reference to go back to.
Wow. So would you say that your grandchildren will have a different upbringing as compared to one that you had in Dominica?
Well, one of my grandchildren, my grandson, is here in Tanzania, and I see the things that he's doing. I see the way, the way he plays, the way he's out and about, the way he loves the outdoors, the things that he loves, and I think, wow, some of the things that I did when I was in the Caribbean growing up. So he's having a kind of similar kind of upbringing to what I would have had in the Caribbean. But I guess the ones who grow up in the West, if they are going to grow up in the West, they will have a different upbringing. Because my children have a different upbringing to me. Things that I would say to them, they're like, oh, but Mum, we're in England, we're in the UK. So the way that I was brought up, it's different when you're influenced by a different culture, a different way. So yes, there is a difference, but the parents need to do their best within that culture to instill the right values in their children. So what I've got intrinsic to me as someone being born in the Caribbean, I carry some of it. So when my grandson comes here, when I have my grandchildren around me, I'm trying to put a bit of that into them.
Wow, that's really impressive. So would you say your mentality, arriving in the UK when you're around 11 years old, would you say your mentality is British or you still have that African Caribbean identity?
I think it's a mixture, but I think fundamentally Caribbean. I spent about 11 and a half of years of my childhood there, and I remember that's why when I've connected so much with Tanzania because of the things that are already there embedded in me. So I would say it's a mixture, of course. I would hope that I've taken some of the good things from the UK, from my upbringing there, and kind of blended it with the Caribbean and so on. I'm hoping that I've done that.
Wow.
I might have some habits that maybe not helpful, but yeah.
Wow. Dominica to the UK and finally in the motherland in Africa. Wow, big decision.
Huge decision, especially when people don't understand why you would move from the UK. It's like they think the UK has everything, your comfort, everything seems to be straightforward. It's like you're going backwards. That's what people think, But for me, in a way, yes, I'm going back, but not backwards, because I was born in the Caribbean and I came from somewhere. The Caribbean isn't where, we started. I've always known we originated from the motherland. And for me, I'm coming back to where I originated from. I'm coming back to what was my roots. So also, there was a time when I always used to think that I would go back, because I was born in Dominica, I always used to think that I would end up there maybe when I'm retired. But I know that's not where I came from originally. So it makes sense that I would try to be in a place where I came from originally. But I still like Dominica. I still want to visit there. I want to make it a regular thing that I visit there. But knowing that this is where I need to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Queen Simcha, 54 countries in Africa, and you had to be so biased and just choose Tanzania. I mean, like Ghana opened the year of return and other places as well. Is something about you and the Tanzanian people that you felt connected to? Why Tanzania of all places?
Why Tanzania? That's an interesting question, and there's a long story to it, but I'll try and give you a smaller version. You mentioned Ghana, right?
Yeah.
I think anyone probably watching would be thinking, yeah, Ghana. Because most people think about Ghana, and I had been to Ghana twice. Had been there twice. The first time I went there, I was like, oh my gosh, I've arrived, There was such a connection. And also before I went to Ghana, there was always something that's stirring up within me when I see something on TV around us as a people and so on. There was something, I couldn't quite explain it. And when I went to Ghana, I felt it again. So I thought there was a connection. So I plan for me really was to go back there. I was planning until COVID came because there was a group that was going to get involved in Ghana. It was made up of Americans, people from different European countries, and I think from the Caribbean. We were going to build a community, and it was around the Hebrew Israelite community. But then some things went wrong. I kind of learned some things that I felt, I don't know if I want to be involved in that anymore. But so I was then looking at where am I going to go, looking at Rwanda. I think I thought about Rwanda and somewhere else. And I was trying to weigh up where I should go. But some people who were in that original group to Ghana, they came to Tanzania, and they were talking about Tanzania. And to be fair, and to be very honest, I'd never really heard much about Tanzania as one of the African countries. That wasn't on my radar, so I wasn't sure about saying, oh yes, I'll go there. So I prayed, because I'm a praying person. So I prayed about it, I spoke to people about it, I thought about it, I fasted, all this. And because of COVID as well, and I started hearing about Magufuli. I heard about, some of his policies, some of the things he wants to do for the country, how he's a people person. And around COVID, I was rejecting all those things. At that time, I was working from home. We all working at home, not in the office. And I was able to kind of, find out about things that were going on. So, and all about the COVID. I didn't want to be wearing those masks. I didn't want to be taking the vaccine. And I wanted to go to a country where that wasn't being promoted, all this COVID stuff. So, with all of that, the decision came to come to Tanzania. And that's how I came. And I came quick. I didn't tell a lot of people. Because I didn't want to be put off by that, because why are you going to Africa? Why are you going at this time of the, with COVID and everything, people are dying over there, because that's what they were hearing. But no, I got myself together, organized myself, and I ended up in Tanzania. I didn't know the language, because I'd started to learn Twi, which is Ghanaian, and I knew a few words, but I didn't know any Kiswahili. So that was a big change to come here.
Wow.
But I made some connections with some people before. There was somebody who was from the Netherlands who had a house there already, so I was going to stay with her, and some friends she'd introduced me to who would kind of help me when I got here.
Wow.
So
Wow, that's really impressive. And you've been in Tanzania for how long?
Since 2020, November 2020.
November 2020.
So nearly 4 years. Like November this year will be 4 years, right? Yeah.
Wow. So how has the Tanzanian people received you? Because people speak about you coming back to the continent. Are the people on the continent mentally ready to receive the diaspora? Yes or no? So there are some places in Africa where people are not yet that mature enough to welcome Africans back home. They still treat people like foreigners. But how has the reception been in Tanzania for you?
Okay, so first of all, when I came, people would refer to me as Mzungu.
Oh, really?
And I wasn't familiar with that word, and I got to learn that it's associated with people from Europe, but associated with whites. So if you live in Europe, you're like whites. So I was offended by that I'm not a Mzungu. First of all, I was born in the Caribbean, and just like you, but I came to understand why people called me Mzungu, and I didn't get so offended. I would just educate them and say, I'm not. I'm from the Caribbean. Lots of people just haven't heard of Dominica, but I would say Jamaica, and some would say, oh, Jamaica, Bob Marley, and especially with my locks, So, so I would do a little bit of education, and what I found was that a lot of people didn't know much about the Caribbean. They didn't know much about the how we ended up there as a people. So I found myself doing that. And some people would be they'll be interested. They want to know. And then they started to understand a bit more. So there was that initially. Most people are friendly. When I first came, I went to live in Dar, and it was a little place. Although it's the city, there was a little place it was like a village type place that I saw it, and I got to know the community. So I would put myself out, because I came here and I was determined to get to know people. I think I was quite intentional, so I'd make an effort. I'd go out, I'd say hello to people in the little kiosk where they sold fruits, and I couldn't speak Swahili. They'd laugh at me, we'd have a little joke. Some people would laugh at themselves because they can't speak English. Or those who could speak English, they'd run and get them to speak to me. And yeah, so we had a little banter like that. And I started recording because I thought maybe I would do a YouTube video to record my experiences here, but I didn't get around to it. But anyway, I had lots, so I would always engage people by doing some videos, and that's how I got to know people. I'd go and sit sometimes with them, and so yeah, so that was nice, and I found people friendly. So yeah, it was good. They were very curious about why I'm here. They want to go to the UK, they want to go to Europe, so why am I coming here? So I'd sit down and give a little history, a little story, what I knew. I don't know so much, but what I knew, I'd share it.
It seems that there has been some sort of a wave and a current of Africans coming back to the continent, and it's mostly driven by this new mentality and this awakening movement that is giving people that idea to return back home. I know people come back home in Africa for visit, for trips and vacation, but really coming back, right? There's some force behind it, and I believe that has to do with a change of mindset. What was it for you to move from UK and coming back? Was there a reason behind it? Is it the spiritual movement that you went through that really got you back home? And what would you say about this?
As you mentioned, spiritual movement, you mentioned lots of people, there's a way there is. I think personally for me, I think, yes, it is spiritually. I think within me there's always been a need. As I said to you earlier, when I went, I had this kind of thing that stirs up in me sometimes that I couldn't explain. When I see something on TV with my people, something in Africa, I felt like there's something I have in me that I need to be there or to be given. So there was always that, but maybe I didn't understand it so well. But also coming from the Caribbean, being around people like me, and then growing up in the UK, I know lots of people say there is lots of racism there is in the UK, and I've experienced some of it. I can't say honestly that I've experienced so much to the point that, but I have. There's been subtle racism in my jobs, in the work that I've been in, the environment I've been, where I've trained with just me being the only black person in various courses, and comments that were made and those sorts of things. So I've experienced those things. So that's part of it as well. But also, I remember also because of my spirituality and knowing I have a creator and why am I the color I am? Who am I? What's my role here? Why am I here? All those questions were always coming up for me. And I suppose I got to a point where I heard at some point, I think Most High led me to be wanting to find my identity. I was asking him actually, I was praying, can you help? I need to know who I am. Who should I identify in this? There's a Jesus who's white. But why am I? So all these questions that most of us ask. So I think at some point I had this word, find your tribe. And initially I didn't quite understand what that meant, and I thought it took me to being a Hebrew Israelite. At first it was about the Jewish people. I need to associate with them because they're the people, and then move into the Hebrew Israelite. That's my tribe. And so I've had this journey through Christianity. I've been searching, but there's been this spiritual kind of urge in me to find. So yeah, so it started like that, and then just in terms of spirituality, there's always been something about wanting to things like. I remember when my children were younger, I used to send them to an African Saturday school. During the week, they'd go to school, and then on Saturday, because I wanted them to know about the culture, about their history, and so on. So there's always been something. And living in the Caribbean and knowing that Africa is a bit like the Caribbean. So yeah, there's always been this search. And as I said, from the time I went to Ghana, I wanted to go back. So that's quite a few years ago, and I went back again, and I think it was in 2018. I went there, and I was then planning to go back to Ghana. So being here it's always been something that's been in me to do.
Christianity, the Jewish culture, Hebrew Israelites, and now Queen Simcha fellowships with us. In the Zola Bantu community. And what would you tell someone out there who maybe has never heard about spirituality? What exactly is it?
Okay.
Some people say, is this some voodoo thing?
Yes, yeah.
What are your thoughts?
And also, what I kind of failed to say as well is that during my search as well, I had come across beliefs, teachings related to spirituality, but I was always verging away from it. Although some of it resonated with me, and made sense. But I had to keep away from it because in Christianity, I was taught, and I'm sure others were, that this African thing, that's voodoo, that's witchcraft. Keep away from those things. All these things about ancestors and reincarnation and looking at what do you associate, you know, like some animals you might be associated with, or the elements. That I felt I had that in me, you know, but I would veer away from that. So yeah, so those things that, you know, I wouldn't want to, even about the universe, about the cosmos, about the stars and the moon, and what it means to us, how it's related to us, and all those things that I had an interest in, but I wouldn't go too near to because I wanted to do what was right, and I was being told it's right not to get involved in those things, and I wanted to get to know Most High. So yeah, so I kept away from it. But yeah, so even when I came here, I was more associating with Hebrew Israelites and so on, and following the laws. I came to understand about the biblical laws, so I started to do it because at the end of the day, I'm searching for truth. So I started to follow that and so on, and observe Sabbath and so on. And it was when there's an elder called Elder Hidley. I think you interviewed him. I was following him because, in a way, I was kind of verging away from the whole Hebrew Israelites, because he was saying that we're African, we're Bantus. And I started understanding. And I said, hold on a minute. I remember hearing about finding your tribe. Maybe I'm getting closer to this. So yeah, so I started watching Elder Headley's teachings, and enjoying what I was learning. He said Africa is the Holy Land, and I'm learning all about this, and I'm learning about things in the Bible that's been misrepresented, miswritten. I'm learning about how the colonizers came and gave us the Bible and all those things, and that doesn't mean that everything the Bible is wrong, you know, but there are lots of things in there that's been changed for manipulation. So I'm learning about all these things, and I'm getting. So then you interviewed Elder Headley, and I sat there and I watched. I thought, wow. Bantu, yeah, so wow, okay, I need to get to know about this. And that was from then. I got in touch with you, if you remember. I think I sent you an email. And then from there, took it from there, and I'm learning. There's a lot I'm learning, and it's all new. Some things might seem familiar in that I had seen it somewhere before. It makes sense to me, but I might not know enough about it. And I couldn't really go out there and say, okay, I could start talking to people about what I'm learning, but maybe if they need more information, I might say, well, I don't really have all that information yet, but it makes sense. It helps me to know who I am. And I've learned about the 42 laws of the Mahat, which is in a way similar to the Ten Commandments or the Torah. And I think it makes sense to live by those principles as well. It makes living everyday life, for me, spirituality, as I'm coming to learn, makes everyday life more meaningful and more relatable. About nature, you know, we learning about nature, how we relate to it, how we can see Most High through nature. And right here, I'm surrounded by nature, and when I go out, I appreciate who I am more and who the Most High is more. So yeah, for me, spirituality is beginning to mean that. For me,
that's really amazing, Queen, for you to share that with us on your experience on spirituality. The Queen has been such a blessing to our lives, especially in the Zola Bantu community. Ever since we had the meeting with Elder Headley, she has been such a blessing. But Queen, tell us, what does it mean to be a woman to you?
What does it mean to be a woman?
Yeah. I mean, like, do you sometimes have that appreciation when you are a woman, you know, the ability to nurture, the ability to have children, the ability, you know, to be that helper of the man? Is that something that means something to you on the inside, the power of the woman?
Yes.
Because we tend to, the context, you know, our culture, especially in Africa, through colonization, has degraded a woman, you know, put a woman below a man, you know, made her to be submissive and things like that. But now we're learning in spirituality that a woman is actually powerful.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to be a woman to you? And do you feel like we don't appreciate women enough in our society?
As you mentioned, that one of the things I remember is that when I went to Ghana, I went there for the second time. We were out about in Accra, and I noticed some women were in town, and they were sitting on the ground near the shopping centre with lots of people going up and down with their children on their backs. And I asked somebody who was taking me around, a Ghanaian, and I said, why are these women sitting here in the hot sun with their children, very young children just sitting there? Why? What's going on? I felt really sad. I was moved. My heart moved when I saw them. And I said, why? Because they look very unhappy, So he said that they've come all the way from Kumasi, which is a place very far on the coast. Well, not on the coast maybe, but far from miles and miles. I said, why? They've come to work, to look for work. I said, why? The women, where are the men? The men are back in Kumasi, and the women. I felt moved, and I thought, my goodness, because my whole thing as well was that when I go to Ghana, I was going to try and set something up, and I wanted it to be for women and children because of my experience of work and the work that I've done and so on, and the training I've had in that. So I wanted to do that, and I said, wow, why should a woman have? Why? That's not okay. So yes, I'm moved by the way women are treated in some societies. And I see here the women work really hard here as well. I remember when sorry to say this, but I see some of the men sometimes, come on men, they're around, they're sitting, they're enjoying themselves, relaxing, drinking whatever, kahawa, coffee in Swahili. And the women are working really hard. And I think, yes, the women need to work. I'm not saying they could be work because I used to work. But it's not fair. For me, the men should take that lead and treat the women better. So I think women need to be treated better. And I think a woman, we have a lot of value. And being with Zola Bantu, I've always believed that, okay, men, okay, they take the lead. And I see myself as a woman leading, supporting my husband, my partner in what they're doing, and looking after them. But I suppose now I've learned even more that the role that I play, the role that a woman plays, and I was surprised when you said the women, were priests. Not surprised, but I'm learning. Yes, I was surprised that the women took the lead. In ancient times, they are the ones who took the lead. They were priests. They would go to them. Men would go to them and ask advice before they made a decision. But it's not that way. I've been taught. The man makes the decision. The man does this. The man does that. And I know. I'm afraid. I'm sad to say that since I've been here as well, there's been some groups of those who follow the Hebrew Israelites who believe, not everyone, okay, but they believe that the man dominates the woman. And I know some experiences where people have been treated very badly because of what they believe and how they see the role of a woman. So for me that's very sad. And I'm learning also about the virtues of a woman. And I grew up in the West, so there will be some things that maybe I took on that as a woman, maybe sometimes the way, I'm not saying I dress like that, but the way I might have dressed, not revealingly because I've always tried to dress decently, but maybe, something that probably I would have done not because of the way I was brought up in the West, the culture, the society. Now embracing how really we should be as women. And I'm okay with that. And that's been inside me. But, you get pressured from the different cultures and society and your peers and so on. So I like what I'm hearing. I'm learning about the virtues of a woman, the House of Women, how women need to support the younger generation, that you lead by example, and embracing all of that. And 100%, I love all of that, and I want to know more about it.
My Friends of Africa Queen has taken us on a ride on the woman. We'll be able to have her in another section, part 2. But because of time, we're going to wrap it up. Queen, you touched amazing points on a woman. I'm so touched. Thank you so much for sharing that with the community. And I hope many of you really enjoyed the powerful ways that the Queen has mentioned on a woman. But people want to know, just in a minute, what is the Queen doing now in Tanzania? Is she on a vacation, just chilling by the beach? But what exactly is she doing in Tanzania? I'm sure you come back home and you have to be able to live. Are you working, or are you doing a business, or are you currently just on a vacation, resting? Obviously not for 4 years, but what are you doing at the moment in Tanzania?
Okay, I'll do my best to do it in a minute.
Just in a minute.
Okay, so right now I'm living here in a place called Tanga. It's a really beautiful little village. I've got a place where I've had a project building. It's completed, but there's some kind of final work to do. I used to do my social work when I was here because it was COVID. I was already working online anyway, so I carried that on. I was doing some court work and so on, but I had to take some space because I was working really hard and I was stressed, so I took a bit of time out. But now I'm going to go back this year. I'm going to be working for a voluntary organization called Mikoko. So I'm going to be taking some of my skills and experience and knowledge into that voluntary organization. And I'm so excited about it because I've always wanted to do that. I'm actually wanting to give something and not looking for something in return. We all need to live, we all need to make money, but I want to have a kind of space where I can just give something, give my all that Most High has enabled me to achieve in the West. I want to use some of it here. So I'm going to be doing that soon. And then what sort of business? Okay, so I'm exploring what sort of business I can do. Yeah, I like real estate, so I'm going to look more into that, and if there's anything else I can do. But yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Well, my friends of Africa, that's basically what the Queen has shared with us today. And we played the video in the class group showing how the Queen is inviting the diaspora. If you want to come to Tanga, she basically can be able to host you. And I showed you the amazing place that the Queen has been able to build by the grace of the Most High. The Queen, what can you say in a few seconds to those who want to come to Tanga and what to expect here in Tanga, especially with you already established here, I would say, in Tanga, in Tanzania?
Well, you're here and you've experienced it. And, I could have been saying all this time, the space is lovely, it's quiet, it's peaceful, it's like a retreat, and just saying it to myself. But somebody else has come, you've experienced it, and the feedback you give me is that you like it here. So I like to share good things with people. If I go out for a meal and I enjoy it, I'll be wanting my children, I'll be wanting someone I care about, someone who loves me to share that meal, to experience. So this is like a good meal. And Most High says, in the word, taste and see how good I am.
And see.
Something like that, yeah. So I'd like you to come and taste this and see how good it is.
It is definitely good. It's very delicious, absolutely delicious. Queen, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
Wow, that's a really huge question.
But in a minute.
Okay, in a minute, I want to be healthy. I want to be able to keep my health. I want to see myself maybe going further in the real estate business. I want to set up a business here. I want to be settled with a partner, and I want to see my grandchildren, and I want to help as many people in Tanzania as I can. So I want to see people in doing something have moved forward because they're in and said, oh look, I knew that person, or they'll say, and they're coming here, and they're in my life, they're part of my family because we started together. So I'd like to see all those things. I'd like to see Zola Bantu have a good community here in Tanzania.
Big. That's big.
Yeah.
The Queen just threw something in there, just very slow, and immediately skipped it. Is the Queen trying to say that she's available in the market for the amazing kings over there? Where's the king? Where's my king to help me build all of this? My friends of Africa, this is basically the great Queen Simcha. Amazing time we had basically with her here in Tanzania. If you want to visit Tanzania, she's here. She'll be able to show you around, especially Tanga. I had an amazing time with her over here. And what can you say to the Zola Bantu queens who are watching your Queen before we end?
I love you, queens. I think you're amazing. I like the way we support each other. Let's carry on to support each other, to build each other. Let's just show the world, let's show them out there who we are. And that's what we need to be as the children, the kings and queens of the queens or the kings?
The kings and queens.
The kings and queens. No, you want me to give the message to the queens?
Oh, the queens.
Oh, the queens. So the queens, let's just show, let's support the men. Let's be we're learning who we're supposed to be. Let's walk in that. Let's support each other because we all need help. Love you guys, really.
We are Zola Bantu. We live in love, we live in purity, we live in justice. We are priests and we are scientists and we are judges. The three pillars of spirituality. We bring together the best of us, like we have done today, the best of us, Queen Simcha, and we build together. We don't destroy. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
We are Zola Bantu. We live in love, we live in purity, we live in justice. We are priests, we are scientists, we are judges. The three pillars of spirituality. We bring together the best of us, we build together, we don't